Tech lead, bet the black engineer. She couldn't ship his feature. She shipped it in one night and exposed what he'd been burying for 2 years. You want to review my code? Fine, you fix it. 48 hours. Ship it or clean out your desk. 11 engineers on that Zoom call. Dead silent. One of them had his camera off. 2 were watching their Slack channels, like they suddenly had somewhere else to be. Naomi Reed didn't flinch. She didn't look at the camera the way people look when they want someone to intervene. She looked at the share screen. At the code she'd just said was broken. At the red error log scrolling down the right side. Okay, she said. 2 letters. No performance, just okay. He shouldn't have said it, because what she found inside that codebase, that sprint cycle, was never the same again. But before all of that, you need to understand where this woman came from, and why the word okay coming out of her mouth was the most dangerous thing that happened on that call. Naomi Reed grew up in the part of Memphis that doesn't make the tech industry pipeline statistics. Whitehaven, South Side. A neighborhood where the public school had 34 students per classroom and 1 functioning computer lab that got locked on Fridays so nothing would go missing over the weekend. She shared a house with her mother, Gloria, and her grandmother, Ida May, who everyone called Mama Ida. 3 women, 1 bathroom, a kitchen table that doubled as a homework desk from 7 p.m. until whenever Gloria got home from her second job at the FedEx sorting facility on Democrat Road. Gloria Reed worked the overnight shift, 4 nights a week. She left at 10 p.m. and got home at 7 a.m. And every single morning, no matter how tired she was, she checked Naomi's homework before she went to sleep. Not because she understood AP computer science, she didn't. Because she understood that a woman who checks on things is harder to erase than one who doesn't. Mama Ida had a saying she used every time something felt impossible. Baby, the hardest lock in the world still has a key. You just have to be the kind of person who keeps looking. Naomi was 9 when she found her first broken thing and fixed it. Not a computer. The neighbor's busted electric fan. She took it apart with a butter knife, rewired the motor lead with copper wire she stripped from an old phone cord, and put it back together in under an hour. The neighbor gave her $5. Mama Ida looked at the fan, then at Naomi, and said, "There it is." By 12, she was the unofficial IT person for their entire block. Fixing printers, recovering deleted files, setting up Wi-Fi routers that the instructions made sound impossible. She charged $3 for small jobs and $5 for big ones. Not because she needed the money. Because Mama Ida told her that charging meant you were a professional, and professionals got respected. She taught herself to code from free online courses on a refurbished laptop the school had sold at a $20 surplus sale. She stayed up past midnight in a house that didn't have air conditioning from June through September. A box fan blowing warm air across the kitchen table, working through tutorials, and building small projects that nobody asked for and nobody saw. Her senior year, she built a scheduling app for the church's food pantry on her own time, unprompted. It replaced a paper sign-up sheet that caused double bookings every single week. The church used it for 6 years. She never told anyone she built it. That wasn't the point. She got a partial scholarship to Tennessee State. She worked 22 hours a week at a campus IT help desk to cover the rest. She graduated in 3.5 years with a 3.91 GPA and 2 internship offers, one from a Fortune 500 company in Nashville, one from Meridian Software in Atlanta, which was smaller, newer, and had said in every interview that it wanted builders who see what others miss. She picked Meridian because she believed that sentence. That was her first mistake. Meridian Software built enterprise project management tools, the kind of software that mid-sized companies use to coordinate teams across time zones. 280 employees, Series B funded, a Glassdoor rating of 4.1 that had been slowly declining for 2 years, in a way nobody talked about openly. Naomi joined as a mid-level software engineer on the infrastructure team. Day 1, she understood the floor, not from the org chart, from the silences, the way her Slack messages got read receipts but no responses for hours when other engineers got replies in minutes, the way her pull requests sat in review for 3 days while other engineers were merged same day. The way she'd say something in a stand-up and it would land flat. And then a male engineer would say the same thing 5 minutes later and get 3 thumbs-up reactions. She documented it the way Gloria had taught her to document everything. A private notes file, date-stamped. Not because she planned to use it, because Mama Ida said the hardest lock in the world still has a key, and keys are easier to find when you've been keeping track of where the doors are. And then there was Derek Cho. Derek was the senior engineering lead on the infrastructure team, 34 years old, 7 years at Meridian, longer than almost anyone except the founders. He had a reputation for shipping fast, for being blunt, and for a particular kind of intelligence that people called brutally honest when they meant something a little more complicated than that. He had been the one who advocated for hiring Naomi. He had told the hiring committee she was exactly the kind of builder we need. He said it sincerely. He also said it the way a man says something sincere, when he doesn't yet know that sincerity has limits. Those limits showed up about 6 weeks in, when Naomi's first design proposal cut the infrastructure cost estimate by 22% using a caching approach that hadn't been on Derek's radar. He presented the revised estimate to leadership. Her name was not in the slides, she noticed. She didn't say anything. She added it to the notes file. It happened again with the database optimization in Sprint 8, her refactoring approach, her weekend work, Derek's presentation. 3 people in the engineering review meeting had looked at her while Derek spoke. 2 of them looked away. One gave her the smallest nod that meant, I see it, and I'm not going to say it. She kept working. She kept documenting. 19 months. 31 incidents. She got better every single day and made sure none of it looked effortful, because she had learned, somewhere between Memphis and Atlanta, that the women who show their effort get called emotional, and the women who hide it get called exceptional. And exceptional was the only adjective with any real leverage. On a Tuesday, in March, the engineering team gathered for a sprint retrospective. There was one agenda item that had been escalating for 6 weeks. The Meridian Sync feature, a real-time project update system that was supposed to ship in the last release window and hadn't. The feature was Derek's architecture. He had built the core logic himself, which was unusual. He typically delegated implementation. He had told no one why he kept it close. The sync feature had a bug, not a small one. Under high concurrency conditions, meaning more than roughly 400 simultaneous users, the real-time update pipeline produced duplicate events, phantom tasks appearing in users' project boards, updates showing as completed before they were. In a project management tool, that wasn't a cosmetic issue. That was a fundamental trust failure. The engineering team had been chasing the bug for 6 weeks. 3 engineers had been assigned to it at different points. All 3 had eventually said some version of the same thing. The architecture was too tightly coupled to debug cleanly. The logic had rejected that conclusion twice. He had called it overthinking. He had said the bug was a race condition that just needed the right mutex. He had been wrong twice. The feature had missed 2 consecutive release windows. That Tuesday, Naomi joined the retrospective Zoom call 2 minutes early, the way she always did, and she had her notes open, not the incident documentation, her technical notes on the sync feature. She had been reading the codebase on her own time for 3 weeks, not because she was assigned to it, because she saw the shape of something nobody else was naming. I think I found the root cause, she said when the call started. 11 engineers in the call. Derek's camera on, leaning back, the posture of a man who had already made up his mind about what this meeting was. Okay, Derek said. Show me. She shared her screen, walked through the logic. The core issue wasn't a race condition. It was an architectural assumption that only held true at low concurrency. Derek's original design routed state updates through a single event queue without partitioning by project namespace. Under load, the queue bottlenecked and events from different projects bled together, creating duplicates. The fix required restructuring the queue logic, not patching the existing code. The event queue needs to be partitioned by project ID, she said. That removes the shared state problem entirely. The mutex approach won't work because the bottleneck isn't locking, it's queue contention. She stopped sharing, looked at the camera. Derek was quiet for 4 seconds. Not the quiet of someone processing, the quiet of someone who doesn't like where this is going. I've been in this codebase for 7 years, he said. I designed that queue. The partitioning approach introduces latency at the partition resolution layer. I already evaluated it. I don't see that evaluation in the technical docs, because it was a quick judgment call, not a formal write-up. I think the latency concern is smaller than the contention problem under load. I ran a simulation. You ran a simulation. The way he said it, not a question, yes, on a local environment with a concurrency test harness. It's not production scale, but the signal is clear. Derek leaned forward. The kind of lean that means a conversation is becoming something else. Naomi, you have been on this team for 19 months. I have been working on distributed systems for a decade. I appreciate the enthusiasm, but I need engineers who execute, not engineers who second-guess architecture that's already been through review. 3 engineers in the call had their eyes down. 2 had their cameras off. 1, a woman named Priya Sood, was looking directly at her camera with the expression of someone watching a car crash in slow motion. The architecture went through review before the concurrency issue was identified, Naomi said quietly. The load pattern that's breaking it wasn't in the test suite. That's enough. Derek's voice hardened. If you're so confident in your approach, prove it. You want to review my code? Fine, you fix it. 48 hours. Ship it to staging with full test coverage, or clear your desk. Loser of this argument is done having this argument. Nobody spoke. Naomi looked at the share screen, still showing her simulation results, still showing the queue contention spike that happened at exactly 412 concurrent users, which was 12 users above the current peak load threshold that Meridian's sales team had just exceeded for the first time last month. Okay, she said. She was going to need to move fast, not because she was nervous, because she had 3 weeks of notes, a clear diagnosis, and a fix she had already drafted in a branch on her local machine that she hadn't pushed yet because she hadn't been asked. She had been waiting. The waiting was over. The Zoom ended at 11:14 a.m. By 11:22, Naomi had opened the branch. By noon, she had sketched the full implementation plan on a legal pad. 3 columns. What to change, why, how to verify it worked. She sent one message on Slack to Priya Sood, not asking for help. One line, I'm going to need the staging environment keys by 2 p.m. Can you make that happen? Priya replied in under a minute. Done. At 2:07 p.m., Naomi had the keys. At 2:10, she was in the codebase. The fix was not simple, that was the honest truth. Partitioning the event queue required touching 14 files across 3 services. The tests needed to be rewritten to account for the new routing logic. The deployment configuration needed updating. And it all had to be done without breaking the existing behavior for low concurrency users, which meant the partition logic had to fall back cleanly when the project namespace wasn't passed. She worked the way Gloria checked homework, methodically, one thing at a time. Nothing moved forward until the thing behind it was solid. At 4 p.m., she had the core queue partitioning done, tests passing locally. She made a cup of tea in the office kitchen, came back, and kept going. At 5:30 p.m., the rest of the engineering team logged off. The office went quiet. She turned off the overhead lights in her section. The monitor glow was enough. She wasn't performing for anyone. There was nobody there to see. At 7:15 p.m., she hit a problem. The fallback logic for the partition resolution was causing a subtle regression in the event ordering for small projects. Not a catastrophic failure, a small one. The kind that would show up in edge cases and drive users insane 3 months after ship. She sat with it, made another tea, read the error logs line by line. Found it at 8:40 p.m. A missing sort key in the fallback path that only mattered when events came in with identical timestamps, which happened in batch operations. One line fix. She almost missed it. She didn't. At 10:12 p.m., she pushed to staging. At 10:45 p.m., the automated test suite ran 847 tests, 847 passing. She ran the concurrency simulation manually on top of that. 600 simultaneous users, no duplicates, no phantom events, clean. She leaned back in her chair. The office was empty. The Atlanta skyline was through the window. The same skyline she'd seen from the bus when she first moved here 3 years ago, with 2 suitcases and a laptop that had more stickers on it than keys that worked smoothly. She sent one Slack message to Derek, timestamped 10:51 p.m. Sync feature is in staging. Full test coverage. Concurrency tested to 600 simultaneous users. No duplicate events. Deployment notes are in the PR. Let me know if you want a walkthrough. She closed her laptop and went home. Derek saw the message at 11:08 p.m. He was on his couch, half watching a basketball game, his laptop on the cushion beside him. He opened the PR. He expected to find something wrong, a missing test case, an edge case she hadn't considered, something he could use to redirect the conversation toward good start, but something that kept the framing where he needed it. He read for 40 minutes. His wife came into the living room at 11:50 and asked if he was coming to bed. He said yeah, in a minute. She went back upstairs. He wasn't in bed by midnight. The implementation was clean, not student clean, not good for junior engineer clean, the kind of clean that reflects someone who understood the entire system, not just the section they were assigned to change. The fallback logic was handled correctly, which was the hard part, the part that would have tripped most engineers, the part that would have become a production incident 6 months later if she hadn't caught it. The tests were comprehensive. She had written cases he wouldn't have thought to write, including a batch operation test that specifically covered the timestamp collision scenario. He closed the laptop. He didn't sleep well. Wednesday morning, 7:45 a.m. Derek arrived at the office earlier than usual. He didn't look at Naomi's desk when he walked past it. He went straight to his office, closed the glass door, opened the PR again on his desktop monitor. He read the commit history. She had made 34 commits between 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. Tight, focused commits, each one named clearly. No spaghetti, no fix commit messages, just a person who knew exactly what she was doing and documented each step as she did it. He found one thing to flag: a minor naming convention inconsistency in one of the new service files. Event queue router instead of event queue router. Camel case instead of snake case. He wrote a review comment on it. He stared at the comment for a minute. Then, he deleted it. He sat in his office until 8:30. Then he opened Slack and typed a message to Naomi. Sat with his hands on the keyboard for a moment. He typed, PR looks good. Merging to production tonight if staging holds through the day. He hit send. He did not type good job or well done or I was wrong or anything in the space between those things. She replied 4 minutes later. Thanks. The batch operation test at line 847 is the one to watch. That's the edge case that would have shown up in production. That was all she said. She didn't make him say it. She didn't need him to. Let me tell you what Derek didn't know was sitting in a private notes file on Naomi's personal hard drive. 31 incidents. 19 months. Date stamped. November 14th. Architecture proposal for cost reduction submitted to Derek. Presented to leadership without attribution. January 3rd, database optimization approach implemented and shipped, credited in sprint retrospective to the team. March 19th, removed from the high visibility client migration project without explanation. 3 days after raising a concern about the timeline estimate. She had never filed anything, never escalated. She had watched how escalation worked at Meridian, and she had watched it carefully. 2 engineers before her had raised concerns through official channels. One was restructured into a different team. One was still there but hadn't shipped anything with her name on it in 8 months. She understood the game. She also understood that the game had a version where the documentation doesn't go to HR, where it goes somewhere else entirely. She had been waiting for the right moment for 31 incidents. The sync feature PR was moment 32. That evening, she sent an email to a contact she had made at a previous engineering conference, a woman named Sandra Kim, who had moved from Meridian 3 years earlier and now ran her own technical consulting firm. Sandra had given Naomi her card at that conference and said 2 things. First, document everything. Second, when you're ready, call me. The email had 1 attachment, 31 items, date stamped, with links to Slack message threads, PR histories, and meeting recording timestamps where the attributions could be verified in the company's own systems. Sandra Kim replied in 40 minutes, I've been waiting for this email. Can we talk tomorrow morning? The Meridian Sync feature shipped to production on Thursday evening. No duplicate events. No phantom tasks. 0 error tickets from users in the first 72 hours, compared to a prior average of 14 tickets per post-release day when the bug had been active. The engineering team's Friday stand-up was the first time in 6 weeks that the sync feature wasn't the first item on the agenda. It just wasn't a problem anymore. Derek mentioned the successful deploy to the team. He said, "The infrastructure team did good work this week." He did not say Naomi's name. 7 people in that stand-up heard the omission. 2 of them exchanged a look over their cameras. Priya Sood typed a message in the team Slack channel 4 minutes later. Naomi's implementation on the sync feature was exceptional, worth calling out specifically. She tagged the engineering VP. 4 emoji reactions appeared within 3 minutes. Not from Derek. What happened next took 6 weeks. Not because it was slow, because it was careful. Sandra Kim's consulting firm had worked with Meridian's board twice in the past 2 years on technical due diligence for their Series C fundraise. She had relationships with 3 board members. She did not make accusations. She did not send the documentation to the press or post anything publicly. She did the thing that people who have actually navigated these systems know is more effective than any of that. She asked the board's audit committee chair a simple question, over coffee, with the documentation on a tablet on the table between them. How does Meridian verify that its technical IP attribution is accurate? Because the pattern here suggests at least some of the work being credited to certain senior engineers may have originated elsewhere. The audit committee chair looked at the tablet for a long time. "How long has this been documented?" she asked. 19 months, Sandra said. The chair put her coffee down. What followed was an internal review initiated by the board, not HR, because HR reported to the COO, and the COO reported to Derek's direct manager, and the board had been around long enough to understand that internal reviews have a way of becoming something else when they travel through the wrong channels. The review took 4 weeks. It focused on one specific and verifiable question: did the work credited to senior engineers in key sprint retrospectives and product reviews match the actual commit histories, PR authorship, and design document origins in Meridian's own systems? It did not, in 11 documented instances across 19 months. 7 of those instances involved work attributable, based on commit history and design document metadata, to Naomi Reed. Derek Cho was informed of the review findings on a Thursday afternoon, in a room with 2 board members and Meridian's legal counsel. He did not deny the attribution errors. He used words like oversight and unintentional and systemic gap in our process. He did not say her name once. The legal team noted what he didn't say. The review findings were presented to the full board the following week. 4 items were acted on immediately. First, Derek Cho's role was changed from senior engineering lead to individual contributor, effective immediately. No announcement, no press release. Second, Naomi Reed was promoted to principal engineer and offered the engineering lead role on the infrastructure team, the role Derek had held. Third, a formal IP attribution policy was adopted across all engineering teams, with quarterly audits tied to the same systems the board review had used. Fourth, a third-party engineering culture assessment was commissioned for all 3 senior technical teams. On the morning the promotions were announced in the all-hands meeting, 214 people logged into the video call. The engineering VP said Naomi's name. She was asked to unmute and say a few words. She did not make a speech. She said, "I'm looking forward to the work. Thank you." That was it. No other sentence. She didn't look at Derek's thumbnail on the call, and she didn't need to. What Derek Cho was doing during the board review is worth telling. Not because it's satisfying, because it's real. Week 1, he worked normally. He assumed the review was procedural. He'd been through reviews before. He knew how they went. Week 2, he started checking Slack more often than usual. Not messages to him, the engineering channel. Who was talking to whom? Whether Naomi's name was appearing in conversations she hadn't been in before. It was. Week 3, he filed a response to the review panel through legal. It was 7 pages. It argued that attribution practices in agile development environments were inherently collaborative, and that individual credit was a misframing of how software teams actually functioned. The panel read it. The commit histories were in the same room. Week 4, he called an engineer named Marcus Webb, who had been on the team longer than anyone except Derek, and asked carefully whether Marcus had noticed any concerns with the review process. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Derek, I've been the one not saying something for almost 2 years. I'm not going to not say something twice." The call ended shortly after. The morning of the all-hands where the promotions were announced, Derek's access to the engineering lead channels was quietly rerouted. He found out the same way as everyone else. The meeting. He sat in his home office with his camera off. His square on the screen was dark the whole time Naomi spoke. He left Meridian 4 months later. His LinkedIn announcement said he was pursuing a new opportunity, focused on technical mentorship and systems architecture. It had 23 likes. None of them were from anyone at Meridian. Priya Sood came to Naomi's office on a Thursday afternoon, 6 weeks after the all-hands. She didn't have an agenda. She sat down across the desk and said, "I want to apologize for not saying something sooner." Naomi looked at her for a moment. "You tagged the engineering VP in Slack once, after 19 months of saying nothing." "I know," Naomi said. "I'm not going to pretend it was nothing, but I'm also not going to spend the next 19 months carrying that. I've got a team to build." Priya nodded. "What do you need?" "I need you to be the kind of person on this team that you should have been before. Not for me. For the next person who's where I was 6 weeks ago." Priya didn't respond right away. She sat with it the way you sit with something that's true and uncomfortable at exactly the same time. "Okay," she said finally, just that word. And this time, it meant something different than the last time someone in that company said it. In the 6 months that followed, the infrastructure team shipped 4 major features, all of them on time, 3 of them ahead of schedule. The error ticket volume on new releases dropped 61% compared to the prior year, the lowest in the company's history. The concurrency simulation framework Naomi had used to diagnose the sync feature bug became the foundation for a new load testing protocol that every engineering team adopted. The engineering VP called it the most useful internal tool Meridian had built in 3 years. She hired 5 engineers in her first year as lead. The 5th was a woman named Deja Moore, 24 years old, 2 years out of Howard University, who came in slightly underconfident and sharper than she knew. In Deja's first sprint retrospective, she flagged an issue with a service dependency that 3 senior engineers had missed. The room got quiet, in the way rooms get quiet when someone realizes they've underestimated a person. Naomi watched it happen. She knew that silence. She had lived inside it for 19 months. When the stand-up ended, she stopped by Deja's desk. She didn't say, "I see you. I know what that felt like. You're going to be okay." She didn't say any of the things someone had never once said to her in 19 months, at a desk 3 floors below this one. She said, "That dependency flag was right. I want you to own the fix." Deja looked up. "Are you sure? I said it, didn't I?" Deja smiled. "Okay." At 6 p.m., Naomi called Gloria. Her mother was between shifts, the same as always, 20 minutes to spare. "How's the job?" Gloria asked. "Better. Building something." "Building what?" Naomi looked out the window at the Atlanta skyline. "Same one, different floor. A team that doesn't lose people the way I almost got lost." Gloria was quiet a moment. The kind of quiet that means a person is holding something they've been wanting to say for a long time. "You know what Mama Ida told me the week you shipped that first app for the church?" She said, "That child doesn't break things. She just finds them already broken and decides she's the one to fix them." Naomi pressed her lips together. She was right about most things. She was right about all things. She just didn't always say them out loud. They stayed on the phone a little while longer. Nothing urgent. The kind of call that only matters because it happened. After she hung up, Naomi opened her laptop. 3 screens lit up. She had a code review to finish before morning. She started reading. Not because anyone was watching, not because she had something to prove, because there was still work to do, and she was still exactly the kind of person who does it. Some people walk into rooms and spend years trying to make the room accept them. Naomi Reed walked into a room and spent 19 months quietly building the proof that the room's standards weren't as high as the room thought they were. Then she let the proof speak first. It always does. Eventually. You just have to be the kind of person who keeps looking for the key. If you've ever done the work and watched someone else take the credit, drop it in the comments. Not because it changes what happened, because someone reading tonight needs to know they're not alone, and they're not done. Share this with one person who's keeping their head down right now and doesn't know yet that the thing they're building in the quiet is going to be the thing that changes everything. Don't stop, don't flinch, keep going.